What is up, homies? Welcome back to another reaction from Heroes Reforged. We're checking out a new behind-the-scenes look at Superman. It is Superman Day, so happy Superman Day. 87 years of the Man of Steel. We are going to be revisiting the Christopher Reeve movies. We're going to have those reactions on our Patreon, and we'll eventually obviously have those on YouTube as well as we get closer to the release of those films. I've seen them probably too many times, but I'm excited. I'm excited for you guys to rewatch them and for us to kind of get into those movies and see how you feel, because I know a lot of people tend to love those movies. A lot of people are kind of mixed on them. They are a little bit of a mixed bag at times, but I'm also incredibly excited for the new film that's coming out in July. Clearly. I've already bought all their merch. I don't know what else you need.
I have a Superman hat waiting somewhere. I know I have one somewhere. I thought I'd never have the opportunity to wear it, and because I never thought I'd be this excited for another Superman project. I came into the Superman game late. I didn't watch the movies growing up, so I only, as an adult, is when I started watching the Superman movies.
Yeah.
And as a kid, you know, we talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but I did get into Superman comics as a kid, which I think kind of kickstarted my my love for comic books and superheroes and stuff like that. So I feel an energy behind this project. It feels good. It feels like it's kind of in the right place. I know that this behind the scenes stuff, it always kind of like gets me, and they really know how to speak to me and like my film critic heart, right? Like, yeah, it always feels like it's so earnest and so honest. And I think that's going to be the same thing we see here. But I was just talking about this with some other friends about how, you know, they're not necessarily in the geek space. Yeah, I have other friends. I was talking about it with some other friends, and we were just talking about how like they're not, you know, huge in the geek space, but they're excited for this project because they also feel it. Like they see that this looks a little bit different. It looks cool. It looks re-energized. So let's see what this behind the scene has. Let's see what Jaime Pistolas is talking about here.
All right, let's check this out. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, go.
Being a child, I loved the purity of Superman. It was a time when I was starting to understand what movies were.
James didn't know that Superman was in his future. He wasn't sure that that was the one he should be doing. And then he called me one day and he said, I have a way in. I know what I want to talk about.
I had been trying to crack it for years. This character's noble and he's beautiful.
We just finished day 1 on Superman.
Oh my God.
It's been a hell of a week at the office.
Oh my God.
Oh man, his suit is all dirty.
His stories, they're heartfelt.
You know, we love the opportunity.
Oh,
wow. Practical bots.
Characters and stories, and we really want to do justice for them.
Hawk Girl. Oh, wow. Metamorpho. He looks so good.
Oh my God.
Together finally.
Yo!
I wear my trunks on the outside of my pants. Like, it's liberating.
James and his stories.
Wow.
Does it with heart.
Superman is a character who's good.
Who is filled with hope.
Yes.
Saves people because it's the right thing to do.
Oh, yes.
A little bit more of that.
Superman was my original superhero, and it started in comics, and I think it's going to be a game changer.
Wow.
This is the beginning of the future. They are launching a new era right now.
It's the beginning of a whole new adventure and a whole new universe.
God, it looks so good.
Yeah, dude.
We're just getting started, and we're already deep in the DC universe. In James Gunn, we trust, and I think we can do it.
Come on, show him flying. Give me one thing of him flying.
Nope, not a single flying shot, Adam. Nothing for you, my guy.
That looks so good. Are you
so
kidding
good.
me?
Yeah. I don't understand how there's doubters to this project, because it just like I said earlier, it feels like it's re-energized, and it feels like it's it feels like it is going in the right direction for this character. I don't know, Adam. You're the Superman guy in the group. Talk to me. What are you feeling? Does this change your mind? Does this open, like, kind of help you find a direction? How do you feel?
I mean, it doesn't, if anything, it just continues to reinforce and get me even more excited every time I see something new from this movie, because the thing that I've always talked about when it comes to my love for Superman is that he is the most hopeful, he is the most optimistic character in the DC universe. And of course, he goes through these waves where sometimes that is tested, sometimes that is broken. And a lot of those stories come so many years after he's already been Superman. When you're starting out this DC universe, people have to fall in love with the character in order to really understand who he is. Because the narrative when it comes to Superman for years and years and years has been, he's boring because he's all powerful and he deals with no issues because he's indestructible. And I think something that was definitely a bit more at the forefront in Superman's earlier comic book days, and even in like animation and stuff, was that, yes, he was incredibly powerful, but even his power had certain limitations. Like if he got hit with an object big enough, it would knock him back and propel him, you know, away from whatever he's trying to do. And I like that in this movie, it seems like we're kind of going back to that Fleischer era, early Action Comics. He's still really powerful, but there is that limit to his power, and I like that. And I think Superman can develop over his tenure in the DC universe, the film universe, where he can become more powerful, he can become stronger, his abilities evolve. He can take on bigger objects, and you know, the more exposed to the sun he becomes over the course of his film duration, I would imagine that it would kind of increase his power set. That's kind of what I'm starting to imagine and think about when we see more of this type of stuff and we see James Gunn talk about Superman. Superman is not going to be the most powerful being in the DC universe from the first film. It's going to be an evolutionary sort of development for this character, because I think when we meet him in the movie, I think he'll have been Superman for only about 5 years or so. So for some people, they might say like, well, in 5 years, he should have been able to become the greatest, the most powerful, yada, yada, yada. But it also depends on what kind of threats he's dealt with over the course of 5 years. If it's mostly been small scale stuff and it's been, you know, Lex Luthor without having any sort of extraterrestrial help, then I think it's really plausible that he hasn't had the opportunities yet to build up that power set to be the most powerful being. You know, I saw the commentary that people made in the preview that we got, the extended preview where he's being healed by the sun, and people are like, well, why is he feeling pain? And I was like, well, if he's being hit with the powers of the sun at 290% Saharan prime, that's like 34,000 degrees of heat that he's being hit with at the same time. And also internally, like his body is basically putting itself back together. That would be like, I mean, for a regular human being, you would probably go into shock because it would just be so painful. So for him to have some sort of an emotional reaction to that, I think is fine, because they're playing it a little differently than what we traditionally know. Now, 10 years down the line, I want to see him facing off against Darkseid and having that famous line from Justice League where he says, I live in a world of cardboard and I always have to be very aware of the world that I'm living in and how I physically move through that world. But now it's an opportunity for me to fully unleash my power. I would love to see that. And I think we can build towards that. So just everything that the cast and crew is saying, and I love how much practicality there is in this movie. And that's not a knock on like anyone. Like previous Superman movies have used a ton of practical and elements mixed with CG. But I think the visual style of this film is leans a little bit more towards the sort of like classic DC Superman, and I'm excited about that. And it looks like already there's like tons of references and Easter eggs to so many Superman comic book things. So yeah, it just looks really good to me through and through.
It does look good. I want to go back to your point about, you know, Superman being all powerful. Because he's all powerful doesn't mean he doesn't feel pain.
Exactly.
Like his pain receptors
Physical
are there
and
just
emotional.
like everybody else. If anything, he probably feels more pain than normal people do. And I think that's a concept that some people don't grasp, that like his nerve endings don't die because he gets hit hard and can get back up from it. Doesn't mean he's in a shit ton of pain, right? And I also, to go back to your other point about Superman being full of hope, I think Superman shines the best when he has to fight past his urges to give up, because he reaches points where he, you know, maybe doesn't feel hopeful and doesn't like feel like he can defeat whatever situation he's in.
Right.
And pushing past that point, I think, is really kind of where hopefulness and being that shining example of being the best human being really come out. And that's where he shines. That's where he always pulls through, and that's why we love him, because he's showing us how to be a better person. It's obviously not against, like, we're not fighting aliens because we're just normal people, but there are things in your personal life that may feel that big, and problems that you're facing that do feel, you know, that it's the last thing you could ever face. And having that symbol, that's why they keep calling him the symbol of hope, having that symbol of hope there, letting you know that you should push through and you should keep fighting your hardest no matter what. I think that's really kind of the main takeaway, and I hope they hit that in the movie, because to say Superman is just full of hope and it's inherent in him is great, but to show us the struggle of getting to that point, I think is really I think maybe that's the thing that James Gunn was trying to crack when he says, I finally cracked it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I need Superman to do. And also, to go back to your emotional point, right? Like, there are things that, like, Superman can't fix. You know, people have heart attacks and people get depression, and there are things that Superman can't punch his way out of. And that's also super important too. And I feel like if there's anybody who could take a character that people are either not familiar with or aren't somebody's favorites and make them their favorites, he did that 100% with the Guardians for me. I was not a huge fan of the Guardians coming up. The movies were fun because, you know, they had the music and, you know, it was a different tone from the rest of the movies. But by the end of Guardians 3, Rocket became my absolute favorite character in the MCU, because he's just so well written. His arc is absolutely incredible. To go from, like, this little scoundrel who just is looking out for himself to being one of the leaders of the Guardians of the Galaxy is just absolutely incredible. So I feel like this project is prime for where it's at right now. This little behind the scenes look just kind of solidifies all that stuff for me. And I'm ready for Superman to just, like, prove all these haters wrong. I'm really just so ready for this movie to come out and do so well at the box office that it knocks some movies off of the top of the charts.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Waiting.
And, you know, we watched 4 seasons of Superman and Lois. We watched 2 seasons of My Adventures with Superman, and that's some of the best Superman stuff.
Of the devil, baby.
That's out there. So, you know, like, I think it's, I don't know. I think anytime I hear people talk about how there are reasons for why they don't like Superman, I'm always a little bit discouraged. And I always wonder, like, well, what are you reading? What are you watching? How are you consuming your Superman media? And what exactly, you know, like, what's your introduction to this character? Because I don't know, there's just so much stuff out there that talks about exactly what you're saying. It gives you so much insight into who he is as a character. And I agree. I feel like James Gunn has figured out some sort of a way, because he was offered this like 7 years ago originally, long before he came in to take over DC. I think it was even before the Suicide Squad. Like, he was kind of mulling it over between that project and Superman. So to find a way in, you know, I think it's really important. I think it's also, like, what happens to you personally in your life. And I have absolutely no idea if James Gunn losing his father maybe had some sort of a tie into that as well, because Clark's relationship to Jonathan Kent is so special. Clark's relationship to Jor-El is so interesting and special in its own way. So, like, it's also those sorts of things. Like, you bring a lot of personal emotions into Superman, because it's not about just him being the superhero. It's also about Clark Kent, Kal-El, his relationship with humanity, with Lois, with Jimmy, with Martha and Jonathan Kent, and coming to sort of terms with being a child of two worlds. Like, he's a child of immigrants, or technically he is the immigrant to alien parents.
It's an immigrant story.
Yeah, so there's a lot of those sorts of things. There's a lot of those undertones in Superman's story that I think a lot of people forget about, or maybe they don't think about it on the forefront. But those are really important to who Superman is. He battles, or he sort of juggles both heritages of being this Kryptonian who knows a little bit about his past, but also being American, because that's how he grew up. He grew up on American values. So that to me is going to be really interesting to explore. It's not about just the superheroism. It's not about him just, you know, saving cats out of a tree or saving people out of a burning building. It's also him dealing with his identity of who he is. And there's been a lot of really great comics that have come out in the last, 5, 10, 15 years that are touching on that slowly and slowly more. And even things like Son of Superman, where we're now passing the torch, or including John Kent being a superpowered being in the comic books, and how does he deal with that, and how is he different from Clark Kent? So I eventually want to get to all that stuff. I'd love to have Superman and Lois have kids in the films, and eventually get to a point where John Kent or Jordan or whoever they end up bringing on, and however they spin the mythology, take over, or also just like our Supermen with their father, I think would be really cool. So
that'd be
very
super
optimistic
rad.
about this movie. I have a lot of hope and have a lot of faith in it.
In Superman and Lois, if people are jonesing for Superman content,
come on,
go watch My Adventure with Superman. Go watch Superman and Lois and really get like a flavor of what Superman can be, and how great this character, and how many more stories we'd love to see him in. And to go back to your point about immigrants, Adam, I think me, you, and Hector are all children of immigrants, and we're first generation Americans, and it really kind of speaks to us. And I hope that other people who don't necessarily see that find that in Superman, right? Like there's so many people who are children of immigrants, and they need to, if they don't realize, I hope they realize that Superman is your story. It's telling a story about you and an experience close to what you came up with. And it's just, there's just so many points that Superman can touch on. And like I said, we have so many stories that we could tell about him. And I hope this is just the beginning of a giant 10, 20-year run of amazing Superman stories on film. Yeah. Because we need it badly. If there's any time in history we needed it, it's now, baby.
Desperately.
Yes,
But,
yes.
Guys, let us know, what are your thoughts on this behind-the-scenes look at Superman? What are your expectations? What are you hoping to take away from the movie? And what do you hope that the movie does that might surprise you? Whether it's something that they've never done on film before, or something that is so comic book specific that you would never think that they would put it on film. Because, again, it's James Gunn. The guy loves comics, and he will pull the most niche shit out of a comic book and put it in a movie. But let us know your thoughts. Make sure you guys come back, check out our Patreon and our YouTube when we do our reactions to the original Superman films. That will be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Heroes Reforged is gonna react. Heroes Reforged is gonna review. Heroes Reforged is gonna discuss. That's why we are watching